Hi, I'm Johnny Cash. I'm a senior game designer on the World of Warcraft team. I was the zone lead for Bastion.
Not to be confused with the musician Johnny Cash, right?
Or maybe to be confused, up to you.
Hi, I'm John Haidt, and I'm the executive producer for all things World of Warcraft.
So we're going to talk about Shadowlands, your newest expansion you just announced today. So talk about some of the details we didn't see in the presentation. Is there a higher level cap now? Is there a new class? Anything like that?
Sure, I mean, where to start, right? I'm still like shaking with all the energy from the crowd. So we actually did a entire reflow and rework of the leveling system. It's something that, that 120 level cap that we know from Battle of Azeroth was something that felt like, just like a bit of a lot. It wasn't something where we felt like we could really give players enough meaningful things every level. It felt like it took a little bit too long. It felt like you were moving around expansions too frequently. And so there's an entire reflow now where, like for a new player, for example, we have an entirely new starting area that really focuses on showing some of the best that WoW has to offer for a new player. Then from there, at level 10, they'll proceed to Battle for Azeroth, just as we know it, and they'll level from there from 10 to 50. And so Shadowlands is actually going to start at level 50 and then go all the way to 60. And so that is kind of the new leveling reflow. If you're a veteran player that's played the game before, of course, you can pick to level through a specific expansion and play through all of it. You can hop around a bit if you prefer that sort of thing. But either way, once you hit 50, you're going to Shadowlands.
So essentially, the level cap is still 120. We're not going to 130.
Nope. Level cap is now going to be 60. Yeah, the reason that the numbers are now go up to 60 is we want to make sure that every time you level, something cool happens. We want to give you a new ability. We want to expose you to something new in the game, unlock something. But going all the way up to 120, we'd spread things out so much that you weren't, getting that cool experience. So we wanted to bring it back down. Also, it makes it a lot less daunting for new players coming in. But you'll have the same power. So if you're a 120 player and you start playing the day that Shadowlands goes live, you're going to be just as powerful as a level 50.
So every expansion has like a theme. At Legion, it was artifact weapons. Battle for Azeroth, it was Azerite and Azerite armor. What's the theme in Shadowlands, if you have one?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like that big marquee system that really ties everything together, I think it would be the Covenant system, which is actually, it's many things, but at kind of the heart, as you level through Shadowlands, you're going to meet these covenants, these ancient groups that performed really critical functions in the Shadowlands, in death. And as you get to meet them and you get to know them, at max level, you're actually going to make a choice to join one of them, and only one of them. And based on that choice, you're going to get a new class ability, as well as a new ability that everybody made that choice gets. You're going to get access to tons of player customization, an entirely unique max level campaign, an area for all those players that made that choice to hang out, called a Covenant Sanctum. And they're kind of similar to the Legion class halls. And then that's just the tip of the iceberg. So it's this really huge, encompassing, customization-driven thing where you're making a really significant choice as a player. And it's going to give each of your characters, if you like to play multiple, potentially a very unique experience into Shadowlands, especially at the end game.
Now, how does that system work? Are the covenants faction specific, or is it just all the covenants are available for both Horde and Alliance?
You can choose any of the factions, any of the covenants. We still have the faction separation between Horde and Alliance, so you can't group together if you're Horde and I'm Alliance. But if we have different covenant selections, we can actually play together for the same faction. But you'll be, as Johnny said, you'll take a grand tour through all four of these. And remember, these are a description of the afterlife. Each one served a purpose of the Shadowlands before, bad things started happening and souls started being redirected into the Maw. And as you play through them, you'll understand what they're all about. You'll understand what their unique powers are. You'll get a chance to sort of feel like which one fits best for you. And you'll be able to change your mind, but that's actually that's going to be a difficult process to go back and reverse your decision. But we realize that some people just, they don't get it right the first time.
So in terms of scale, how big are these zones? And I guess it's a new continent compared to past expansions.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite a continent in terms of the Shadowlands are all these disparate realms that are infinite. There are infinitely many of them. But we're going to visit the four that are the home of these covenants because they're particularly significant into the story that's unfolding, without spoilers, of course. And so in terms of size, I mean, they're pretty similar to zones that we've been making in recent memory. Like we feel like that's a good size. But what we're taking a lot of look at, different ways that we can present that content to players, new things that we can do to make both that choice significant, but also to make sure that we're constantly making the outdoor world a more interesting place. So there's lots of cool events unfolding and puzzles to solve, and even bits of things that are specific to the covenant you choose. Like say John and I are grouped, and maybe as a Kyrian player, I'm able to pull a boss through this portal, to heroically fight it. He can still help me, and we're both going to get rewards for fighting it, but maybe he thinks I'm kind of cool that I pulled that boss through, and maybe I feel kind of cool that I did because he says my name when he spawns, like, curse you, Johnny, I'll destroy you, whatever it might be.
Now, in terms of story and gameplay mechanics, where does Azerite and Azerite armor fit into this?
So, I mean, Azerite and Azerite armor, similar to the artifact weapons in Legion, or something that really feels tied to the story battle for Azeroth. So it's something that, without spoiling the story, that's something that's going to kind of come to a head in the Visions of N'Zoth content update that's coming out soon. When we're in Shadowlands, Azerite isn't going to help us because it's kind of tied to the power of Azeroth's World Soul, and we're not on Azeroth anymore. We're in a whole different realm. And so the most similar to that particular system is actually the Soulbind system. So as you're in your Covenant, as you're adventuring at max level, or immediately on alts, you're going to have these particular characters that are drawn to your character, that you help in a dire situation. And they're going to engage in this very ancient ritual with you known as a Soulbind. And as you progress, you're actually going to be able to customize, similar to Artifact Weapon, your gameplay. So those new abilities that you receive as a member of, say, the Kyrians, you're going to be able to give those new powers or slot in new abilities that teach your character how to parry. Even if you're not a tank and you don't know how to parry, you might be able to now with the right Soulbind. And so that's this really cool opportunity to, through both player choice and customization, let people hone in on the fantasy they like, but also let them make sure that they're getting the gameplay benefits that they want, so that they don't feel like there's a wrong choice. They feel like there's a choice that really speaks to what they want for their character.
But you and I have chosen the same character, but I'm customizing mine my way, and they have very different abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And those characters will be present in the narrative too. Like that's something, we liked how artifacts felt ingrained to the narrative of what was happening. People recognized you have the Ashbringers, well they should. And these characters are going to be quest givers for you too. In addition to the powers that they're giving you, you're going to be engaging in a Covenant-specific max level campaign. And there's 4 unique, completely custom campaign experiences that you're going to be journeying through. And so as you're going through all these epic adventures on your first character, you might on your second character want to join a different Covenant to see a different side of the story and to see what those Soulbinds are like and what powers they have too. So there's a ton of replayability, but it's all really rooted in choice and customization.
One of the questions I have to ask, because if I don't ask it, people are going to ask in the comments, why the decision for no new class? Obviously, I know why, because it messes the meta up generally, but this was we got Demon Hunters and Legion, then we went to Battle for Azeroth, and then we were going to get to Shadowlands, and if you kept the pattern, we should have gotten a new class, but why the decision for no new class?
I mean, in many ways, the Covenant system felt like the right place to introduce new class flavor into the game. So in a certain way, when you say I'm a warrior and I join the Kyrian, you're a warrior first and foremost, and that's not going to change. But you also become a member of the Kyrian, and so this kind of becomes an added part of your identity. And so these different choices you can make are going to layer on, like I was mentioning, these new abilities. And so as a warrior, or as any class, we felt like it was a really special opportunity to not just, let's add a new class just because it's been a while. We felt like the coolest thing we could do that felt the most tied to what Shadowlands is all about is to let players add new abilities onto their characters that they like, that they feel resonate with their fantasy, or give them the gameplay that's really engaging for them. And so that felt like the right choice to make for the game.
Yeah, every Covenant will get a special ability, and then there's going to be a special class ability so that ties into each Covenant. But classes are getting some love. One of the things that we learned from BFA was through the class redesign that we did, some players are coming back and saying, "Hey, I've lost a favorite spell. I've lost something I thought that was key to the identity of my character. The ability to see through the eyes of your pet when you're a hunter. But some people dig it. They didn't like the fact that it was pulled out. So we're actually returning some of those favorites and making them available across a given spec, across a given class for all specs.
There's a feature that I've been wanting for a long time. I've always been in D&D, I've been a druid. Anything that allows me to shapeshift is cool. So the second Worgen were introduced, I immediately race changed to a Worgen druid. But the one thing that drives me absolutely insane is that I'm a werewolf that turns into a cat to do damage. Can you make a glimpse so I can stay in Worgen form while I'm doing feral damage? It makes sense.
I mean, that's always something, right? There are so many cool ideas and alternate fantasies. Like, you know, one of my coworkers really wants to be the ultimate Dark Iron Paladin that's doing more fiery stuff and melee stuff. And I think that's awesome. And so obviously that's something we're always looking at and seeing what can we do, what can we add, what's the coolest thing we can add for a class. And in some ways, the Covenant stuff lets you express some of those fantasies. Like, just to take the Paladin example, I play a Paladin on Live, and I really want to be a Blood Knight, like that proper expression of the slightly, darker side of Paladin that's willing to chain up a Naru if that's what it takes to get the job done. And so my Paladin might join Revendreth at max level, this land of gothic castles and dark kind of red energy running through the place. And so my armor and my abilities and some of the customizations I'm getting will actually let me get closer to that fantasy that I have in mind for my character. But, John's Paladin might be kind of more of a traditional role, and he might go for the Kyrians of Bastion, who kind of have that more like, we're upholding, we live lives of service, we're all about duty and order.
It's going to be Maldraxxus, I'm sorry.
or the darker Paladin fantasy.
So, how are you guys handling flying in the game? Is it similar to what you've done to past expansions? There'll be a Pathfinder achievement later on. And...
we love to have people experience the world.
Right.
Go through see the content, really get into it. But we've established this pattern in the past of having flying available. People, expect it. They have a lot of flying mounts. So we'll do something very similar. So in the beginning, when Shadowlands first opens up, you aren't going to be flying, but later on, you'll be able to unlock it.
Will we see new allied races on the factions in this expansion?
I mean, that's always something that we're looking at and see, what makes sense in the story at the time. And that's why, we have the Volpera and the Mechanomes coming very soon, because they felt like races that would want to join your faction that really felt appropriate. And so, that's something that we're always looking at. It's not something that we have anything to announce right now, but, if it makes sense at a given time, it's of course something we will consider.
But if you like allied races, remember, Port Bolvar is going to need some help. So we want to make sure that there's as many Death Knights as possible. Every allied race, as long as you have Shadowlands, you'll be able to unlock every allied race as a Death Knight. So
awesome.
Including upcoming allied races.
There you go.
So think of your Death Knight Volparian.